A good note to close on, because we're going to have some questions after the break about the city manager, as I'm sure everyone expected. I'd like to thank real quickly the candidates as we close out the first hour here. We're still going to have a second hour, but we're closing out the first hour. Thank our sponsors, the Greensboro Neighborhood Congress, the Greensboro News and Record, Guilford College, and News 14 Carolina. Make a plug again for those of you who want to hear from the district candidates. That's Monday night at 6:30 at Central Library, and then the at-large candidates is Thursday the 27th at 6:30 at Central Library. Finally, I want to encourage everyone to vote on November 8th. I know I'm speaking for all our sponsors when we say if this event just gets a couple people out to vote who wouldn't have otherwise, this was worth every minute of it. Thank you.
You are in an elevator with the next city manager or city attorney of Greensboro. Give me that elevator speech on why you would tell them this city council is a good boss to work for.
All right, we're riding up in an elevator with the new city manager and the new city attorney. And why is Greensboro a great place to come to work? And
no,
why?
That's not the question.
What is the question?
Is why is this city council a good boss to work for?
Okay. Well, first, I think we're going to have to convince them that Greensboro, North Carolina is an outstanding place to come to work. Then we're going to convince them that this city council can work together, does understand the council manager form of government, can provide a shared vision and a strategic vision for them to implement the specifics of, and we're going to let them do their job and hold them accountable for results. That's what we're going to tell our new city manager. Our city attorney, we would tell a little different story. We would tell that city attorney that we respect your professional opinion, and that when you render an opinion, we're not looking for it to be our opinion as individual council members. We're looking to be given legal advice that is based on strong legal principles, based on a professional's advice, and we're going to respect that opinion, not try to alter it.
And am I working? Okay. Speaking to first to the city manager and the attorney, and it's been my real honor and pleasure to work with Rashad Young. As we know, he's going to Alexandria. And already the mayor up there has said basically what I had said about Rashad earlier. Hope we could keep him a while. I had hoped we could keep him 3 years, 4 years, 2 years. Up there he's saying they hope they can draw his talents. But Greensboro is a great city. He knew it. I asked him about it. I said, I had a conversation with him. I said, has it been a problem? He said, no. He said, it goes on with every city council. He came from an environment where labor, organized labor, he was dealing with labor strife with fire unions, fire department unions. So there's always an issue that a manager deals with. They're professionals. And he was the consummate professional, and I'm confident we're going to work hard. We'll find another. As far as the city attorney goes, we have an interim now who just retired from being city attorney in Wilmington. Greensboro joins the rest of the state in having the city attorney work for the city council. He was somewhat mystified by having the relationship of working for the manager. It'll work. It's worked across the rest of the state. It'll work for us. I don't have any doubt.
I'd like to beg indulgence and ask again to answer that question. Why would this city council be a good boss for the next city attorney or city manager? I don't think I heard an answer to that question.
Okay.
Do I need to start again?
No, Mayor Knight.
Okay. This city council or a city council?
This city council.
Well, this city council has had a great relationship with our city manager. I mean, that's demonstrated. I think he completed after the last year the evaluation he got. He got great marks from all members of city council. Everybody's been pleased. We've had a good working relationship. And in spite of charges of micromanagement, I would respectfully disagree with that. He has done a good job. You look at what he's done. They develop the agenda for the council meetings. The manager is responsible for that, not the city council. He's done a great job of that. He's led us through our work sessions. He's been very visionary. The city attorney has rendered, we've gone through 2 or 3 changes in city attorneys. By the way, the city attorney who left, she resigned. So I just want to dispel that. She resigned. But anyway, we've had a good working relationship with the attorneys. I've been there. Mr. Pollard, even though I disagreed with a decision, I respected. I think he was very thoughtful, insightful as an attorney. He upheld the law. I respect the law, and I think he did a great job, and I have no problem with that whatsoever.
Does that address your concern?
Yes.
Next question, next 2 questions will go first to Mr. Knight. One of them follows up on Rashad Young's departure. And interestingly, it says, we're all looking at Rashad as our city manager, but the fact is he's a young professional. He's 33 years old or thereabouts. He's professional. He's the kind of person we want to retain here, and we're not retaining him. And maybe it's not just about the job. Maybe it's about more than that. And so they're asking, as mayor, what are you going to do to help Greensboro retain the folks who are graduating from our 7 colleges and universities and have them invest for longer periods of time in our community? And that's going to Mayor Knight first.
I'm sorry, repeat the last part of the question. Are we talking about city manager or just college
I think
graduates?
people are saying the city manager's departure is indicative of an issue that people are seeing in general with young professionals and the opportunities for them here or lack thereof.
Well, the retention of young professionals here is a function of our economy, largely. Our city manager, he's 35, but as good, he could move into about any area. I talked to him, and I was in a forum earlier today, and one of the council members had a discussion with him when he came to Greensboro. Apparently it was around when he was hired. He had said he hoped he would find a time when he would land in the Washington, D.C. area. He echoed that when I talked to him a week ago, that he's really pleased. I mean, it's a great opportunity for him there. He's on a career track. A city manager is on a career track. They can move with his talent, his ability. He has got a world of opportunity awaiting him in government, out of government, universities, you name it. And so I wish him well. So, but as far as young people here, again, part of the efforts right now to stimulate, and there are some work, there is some work with the Synergy Group to retain the young people here. We've got to have a place for them to work. And so we're collaborating, all of us, to make that happen.
Mr. Perkins.
You know, I've really enjoyed working with City Manager Rashad Young during his tenure in Greensboro. And I could only have wished that I could have served as mayor with Rashad Young as city manager, because I think that his energy is contagious, and I think that we could have accomplished a lot together. However, he's moving on, and our challenge is to hire another equally talented city manager and move forward as one community. Greensboro has 30 to 35,000 students in our city. And I think that the growth and the success of our institutions of higher learning, our universities, are going to be indicative of our community's success. And the more the city of Greensboro can work with the universities to ensure that that we as a community are providing opportunities for employment post-graduation, the more successful we're going to be. I think the key element to that in the whole state is our Nanotech Center and our Engineering Center, that the $58 million building is opening on East Lee Street within a month. Now, that's going to cause a lot of job creation and a lot of opportunities. And in that technical field, we're going to see the most growth over the next 10 years.
Thank you. Next question from the panel is from Ms. Lamert.
This year, the state legislature made some decisions that affected the city's rental unit certificate of occupancy law. Why didn't the city council go to the state to defend the city's law?
The City Council did not adopt a resolution. It's not the business of the City Council to try to run state legislation, in my opinion. Greensboro has had a great landlord association over the years. I know we've talked about RUCO. It's been talked about. Inspections has been a big issue, but or at least there were, what, 30,000 over 8 or 9 years units inspected. A very small number were found to be non-compliant. And, but nobody has said how many, but how many landlords. I would venture to say that you could count on one hand the number of problem landlords. Our landlords do a great job. They're business people. They go about their business and they take care of their properties, the bulk of them, and I see that, and I support them wholeheartedly in their efforts there. And the problems that do occur can be dealt with, and I think the new legislation hopefully can do that to help address that. Thank you.
Well, RUCO, the Rental Unit Certificate of Occupancy program, has been very successful in Greensboro. And in fact, it reduced the number of complaints, housing complaints, from over 2,000 to 400 or so over the period of time per year. It's hard to cry over spilt milk. If the state legislature decides that they're going to put a program out of business, then they've got the authority to do that. I think the question is, where do we go from here? I think number one, we have made modifications in the city's inspection program so that each inspector has a smaller area to cover. And those inspectors can become more familiar with the problem units in their territory, identify them sooner, and help eliminate that particular blight. From a city council perspective, I think it's important that because of the new regulation, let's increase the fines on repeat offenders. And let's enforce and collect those fines on the repeat offenders. If someone has 7, 8, 9 citations on a particular property, they ought to escalate so that that person pays attention to the unsafe conditions and takes care of the problem. So I think in Greensboro, we're saying that unsafe housing is not acceptable, and we're going to take care of it under whatever rules our legislature gives us.
Next two questions will be to Mr. Perkins first. I've got 3 or 4 here that relate to what I call the micromanagement issue. They're basically saying one way or another that the city's lost very capable, seasoned employees because they've found the work environment to be inhospitable. Do you consider or support the strong mayor form of government? And how do you comment on the allegations that the current council has micromanaged staff? And again, that's to Mr. Perkins first.
Well, I think we've got a strong manager form of government in Greensboro and a weak mayor government. The manager is the chief administrative officer for the city and takes direction from the city council and is held responsible for that, the administrative duties by the city council. So I would not be in favor of going to a strong mayor system. I think that the part-time mayor and the part-time council certainly has had an increased workload over the last few years. But I still think it ought to be a part-time position where we touch the citizens and we instruct the manager and not become full-time mayor, full-time politicians, and folks that actually handle the administrative duties.
Thank you. We do have a council manager form, and I think we've said that quite a bit. Micromanagement, I'm still looking for an example. As far as getting involved, I'd go back to some prior councils when in fact there were small groups of council members working with staff behind closed doors. That's been one of the complaints, that decisions were being made. Some council members were being blocked out. We've been very open. Now we've been argumentative, yes, but we have been open. That has not always been the case. Go back a few years, just go back and review your history. But as Mr. Perkins said, I would agree. I mean, we do not want a strong mayor form of government. I think that happens in some of the northern cities and maybe perhaps out west. But what we have works well. And my own experience is I've had a great working relationship with our manager, and I do not personally interfere with our staff. I always, if I talk to them, I go through our manager. I go through the manager's office. We've always had a good relationship there. And the staff does its job. Thank you.
Next question to Mr. Perkins first comes from panelist Mr. Costner.
You, in this last round, referred to the mayor's job as a part-time position. It is a part-time position. It pays, what, around $15,000 a year. Some of the meetings go well after midnight. Gentlemen, why would you want to do this?
You know, it's a great opportunity to make a difference in your community. And I think the key is leadership and how we want to leave our community. I think that I'm here today because somebody bothered to put together a leadership Greensboro class in 1987 that I attended through the Chamber of Commerce. And they exposed us to the different parts of the community that I had no idea existed. And through my service on the City Council as a district and an at-large representative, I found that the #1 benefit that comes out of City Council is getting to know a lot of different folks that you would have never touched had you not been involved in politics. And so I want to be mayor because I think I can lead this community forward together, one Greensboro, one team, and really try to accomplish some great things in the next 2 years.
I feel like I'm in the House of Commons coming up. But I have a friend who, a former mayor, has served several terms, and we were talking one evening, and he said, you know, Bill, he said, came a time, it was time to run again. He said, I didn't run, I was afraid I'd win. But truly, I mean, we've had some council members here. It's a matter of service, all of us. I think we would agree. It's just an opportunity to serve. I've said I've been retired several years. I've always had an interest in government, and it's just my way of doing my part. And I would say that for everybody on council. Yeah, we disagree, but the beauty is we have a process that every 2 years it changes. We have a new council. There's always going to be. We've had the landfill. We've had the police. We've had, you name it. Next 2 years from now, I'm sure there'll be something else. But we go through it. Greensboro moves forward, and we all have the same common thread. We all want a better city in which to live. And so all of us, we may disagree, but when it's all said and done, we all want a better Greensboro, and we have our own views about how to achieve that. But Greensboro comes out better for it all.
Next 2 questions will go first to Mr. Knight. I've got a couple questions I'm going to combine that ask about tax burdens and water bills. The basic gist of it is, will you keep taxes at current levels, and how, if you're going to do that, how can you move Greensboro forward while doing that? And with the other one says, with people struggling to pay for increased food, gas, and housing costs, will you seek an increase in water rates? That's to Mr. Knight first.
As far water and sewer and taxes, no, I'm not inclined to increase those. As I said early on, I am a fiscal conservative, and to me, that connotes fiscal stewardship and accountability. We do have citizens in this community who struggle, and you know, I'm pretty fortunate. I'm retired, but I'm pretty fortunate. But we have people who a little bit of money means a lot. A water rate, a higher water bill or a bigger tax bill means a lot. We've got to be able to work. Our challenge is to retain services and keep the cost down, because the revenue stream is shrinking. Government is getting deeper and deeper in trouble. At the federal level, the state has struggled, the county has struggled. We are not immune here. We have a good city, we've had a good city government, we have a budget of about $440 million, but we can't take it for granted. We're going to work hard, but for me, I think a tax increase can be a cop-out, so I'm opposed to that. I think we've got to find ways to retain the service, get our job done, and just do that.
You know, I think that it's been interesting that the last couple of years we've had two budgets that this city council's had to vote on, and Mayor Knight and I voted the same way on both budgets. That means we took stagnant revenues on the tax side, and we were able to take and reduce expenses to the point where we balanced the budgets, because in the city of Greensboro you have to balance the budget every year. Now that's on the property tax side. Obviously we're going to be going through a reevaluation next year. You're required to do that by state law every 8 years, and some people's taxes may go up or go down based on the relative values of their property. However, we're going to have to keep that overall revenue number neutral. I don't see us going up on that a bit. In terms of the public utility that we run, that's $1 billion public utility, I think we've got a responsibility to look at the long-term overall health of our water and sewer system. The oil filter commercial says pay me now or pay me later. And if we do not continue to invest in that public utility, then it will fall apart and it will be much more expensive to fix later. I think that every public utility in the state that runs a water and sewer system has increasing stream of rates, because it does fall back on local government to make the big repairs.
Next question is from Mr. Johnson on the panel. I'll go to Mr. Knight first.
I have to apologize to both of you because I'm trying to understand the question to RUCO. If we could go back to that for just a second, I want to make sure I understand what an aspect of this. The question is, why didn't the council stand up for RUCO? That's the question.
I don't know that we didn't stand for RUCO. We were asked, there was a resolution opposing legislation, which we voted on. But again, I would say that we've got a good program in the city, we've got a good inspections program, and it's been proven that of the thousands of units that had been inspected, that the violations were relatively small in terms of the total. And again, I would argue that the problems are a small number of owners. I don't know that that question has ever been answered. How many owners are a problem? You've got to look, and I look at the landlords. These are people who take a risk. They take a substantial risk. I did work for a lot of them when I was in business, and I know they take a substantial risk in operating those properties. And we've got to respect that. They're business people. They're the people who create jobs. So I'm comfortable with the decision we made.
Seems like to me this issue came up on a Tuesday night council meeting, and the legislature was going to address it on Wednesday morning, and we decided that as a council we had fractions one way or the other, and we determined that it would be better to table it and move on as opposed to vote on something that would be rendered meaningless by what ultimately was going to happen the very next morning with or without input. And that's kind of how I read it. I'm not sure that, that we had enough support on council to vote to sustain that particular ordinance.
Maybe we can do this real quickly. I just had a question handed up that follows up on that same. People have been saying, well, what is the failure rate, or how often were units that were inspected failed? And someone in the audience who was on the RUCO board just handed me a note that said the RUCO failure rate was 10%. In other words, for every 10 rental units that were inspected, one of them failed. And so the question is, to Mr. Knight and Mr. Perkins, with Mr. Perkins going first, is do you consider 1 in 10 housing units in the city being deemed unsafe to be acceptable?
Well, again, I voted for RUCO to get it started. I saw the success of RUCO over time and felt that it had served on the RUCO board and was supportive of continuing the concept. The question is 1 in 10 acceptable? No, it's not acceptable. But we've got a state law in place that really guts the RUCO program. So the question is, where do you go from here? You narrow the geography of each inspector so that they become much more familiar with the individual properties in the area and try to get at the problem properties sooner. Then number 2, you increase the fines so that whatever this small handful of problem landlords is are hit pretty hard, and that they understand that it is our community's priority that we all have safe housing. And I think you try to address the problem, and at this point, getting laws changed in Raleigh and move back to where it used to be is going to be very difficult.
I'm glad to hear Mr. Perkins say that small number agree with me on that. The, you know, 10% is hard to quantify, to address that. What does that 10% mean? I mean, are you talking about serious violations? Or are you talking about a window cracked, a door pane cracked, or a lock that doesn't work? Or are you talking about serious problems of houses that are crumbling? I mean, you need to know more before you can give a good answer to that. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question from the panel comes from Ms. Lamert, and it's to Mr. Perkins first.
Everybody makes mistakes. What was your biggest mistake this last 2 years? On the council, I should say, not in life. Or in life, if you like.
Bill, you want to answer that one first? You know, we've been through a lot of situations the last couple of years. I guess the biggest mistake that probably I made was trying to push maybe too hard early on. That maybe I could have sat back a little bit and let this council flow a little bit. But we had come off a pretty tough election, and it ended up being more confrontational than maybe we should have had it. But I think by and large, I fought for process over the last 2 years, and I think I was right to fight for process. I think the City Council was misdirected in handling a number of key issues, and it got the community sidetracked from the key issues, the key priorities of economic development, of public safety, and maintaining our infrastructure.
I'm like you, Robbie. I don't know. It may have been those 29 push-ups I did. I don't know. But, you know, it's hard to second guess. I mean, you can look back, but I mean, there are any number of things you could look back on. But you try to look at in the larger picture. I guess, you know, looking at the council in its totality, you know, maybe I should have been sterner in my works with council when it tended to be at times a little unruly. I've felt at times when we've debated some issues, we've talked about long meetings, but we've taken issues, not necessarily landfill and not necessarily some other topics, and we've talked it to death. I keep a little score sheet that I developed, and so everybody gets a chance to talk. And some have said I don't say a lot. Well, by the time everybody else talks, there's not much left to talk about. But seriously, I mean, you know, the first hour can be productive, but sometimes when we go into the second hour, it's non-productive. And, you know, I've tried to study and learn what is the limit that the mayor under our form can do to control the meeting. I think we as a council can do a better job, and I certainly could do my part. You know, I would to bring the gavel down maybe a little bit more.
Next two questions are to Mr. Knight first. Neighborhood Congress question. hear about neighborhoods that have trouble with, and I'll quote, disrespectful and dangerous patrons of certain nightclubs located near homes. Common problem is that these establishments are grandfathered and cannot be closed easily, even with the help of nuisance abatement law. What do you propose that the city could do to assist neighborhoods who are having problems with these disturbances? That's to Mr. Knight first.
That is an issue that has been with us, and I guess will continue to be. And I don't have a quick answer, but we continue to work. Police department has done a good job. Our legal staff, we talked about legal, they've done a good job of working. We have had some really troublesome activities in some neighborhoods, some outlets that were engaging in some activities that are maybe a little unspeakable here, but they go through a legal process, always go through a legal process. They're warned, and in some cases you get a resolution where they'll come around, but in some cases it gets down to just they get put out of business. And community input from the communities. I think from Neighborhood Congress to you, just staying in touch with us, keeping us aware of this, and I think that's really been useful. We've had any number of times. We do have speakers come to the council to address this. Sometimes individuals may be intimidated to come public on it, but they will contact us, and we do get contacts. I personally we have issues that I refer through the manager's office, or we have an understanding. I go down to the assistant city manager who works over public safety, and the process begins there so that they can take appropriate steps.
You know, it's always difficult to balance the rights of an individual with public safety, and you have to balance those rights, because you can't go in and shut somebody's business down without a good reason, and that reason has to be done under the law. So I think my tenure on city council, we have been very firm on using the law to our full advantage and not putting up with businesses that are problematic in our communities. And we've used the nuisance abatement laws to shut down a number of businesses that have been problems for neighborhoods, and we'll continue to do so. There's nothing worse than having folks tromp through your yards or park all over your neighborhood and be disruptive and create public safety issues in your neighborhood, and you not be able to do anything about it. But we do follow the law, and we have had over the years a lot of cooperation out of our district attorney's office in terms of the nuisance abatement procedures. And I would have to ask our current district attorney to step up and try to take the model that Stuart Albright developed when he was DA and move forward in a more aggressive way to help us help these neighborhoods.